Hi, my name is Sebastian van der Schrier, former social anxiety disorder sufferer and a social confidence coach. I help people feel calm, relaxed, and at ease in social situations. And in this week's video, I'm going to answer a question that was posted under one of my videos. It's by Icaro Oliveira, if I'm saying that right. And here he goes. Hi, Sebastian. I suggest you talk about how your social anxiety impacted your professional life back then. Okay, now this is quite a funny question to answer because I've been a really bad employee, like a horrible employee, or an employee that you do not want in your company. So I've been quite rebellious, I would say, in my teens, and so I've had at least 30 different jobs, and if I didn't like it, I would just resign. Often I would show up late until they fired me. I've been fired at least 10 times. I've done a wide variety of jobs from like um, working in clothing warehouses, picking orders, cleaning stuff, chopping meat, working in a supermarket, walking newspaper, working in a factory, taking a piece of wood, catching it out of the machine, turning around and putting it down on a on a pile of other pieces of wood. I did telemarketing, which was horrible. Um, I worked in customer care. I did so many things. And sometimes I would have a job for 3 weeks. Sometimes I'd have a job for 3 months. Sometimes I have a job for one day. And I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I resign. So, how it was with my social anxiety? Well, depends. Like if I didn't have anything to do with the people around me and I just had a job that I knew, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit, I don't have to communicate with anyone, and I just have to call to check on if these numbers are still correct, for example. If the data is still correct, like you have to call up this company. It's like, hey, this is Sebastian from blah 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 company. We're just checking to see if all the data is still correct in your system. Is it true that you are on this and this location and blah 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 blah? Yes. And it would just be a straightforward job. I would have no problems. But when I would work longer in a company and people would be out and about in the weekend, and they'd all be friends, and I was the outsider. Now that did become a big problem. I remember working at TomTom navigation devices in Amsterdam, and I really felt like an outsider there, and I was very anxious at work. And the job is like I don't have any anxiety about calling people or about being called by people, so I would answer the phone. That was not a problem. But when everyone was hanging out and being social amongst each other, and I was the silent guy that was not talking, that was pretty much not talking, that made me feel super anxious if they were, if they were socializing around me. Or if I was put as the center of attention, or if I was questioned, or anything like that. That made me very, very anxious. Then, in terms of making making a career, like in the beginning, like when I was 15, I stopped. I went to Central Institution Education Sports to become like a sports teacher, but I was 2 years younger than the other guys, but I was athletically at their level, or at least good enough to join their level, because I had done a pre-test. So I just turned 16, and they were all 17 and a half and something. 17 and a half and above that. And so I was the youngest there in class, and they were all talking about girlfriends and sex, and my life consisted of doing drugs and hanging out with dudes. And that was all new for me, and now that was the new cool, and I couldn't relate to that. And so that really, I was really at the bottom of the pecking order there. And that was horrible. And what was even worse was every week you had to what do you call that? You had to give a class. So you had to prepare a class and then give that class to everyone, or maybe that was once a month or something. I forgot, but it was just pure torture until like after 2 months of being at that school, feeling anxious going into school, being anxious in class, being anxious at swim class, being anxious thinking about having to perform, like anxiety, anxiety, anxiety all the time, coming home, smoking weed, and then at the end of the evening, getting anxious, thinking about, oh no, tomorrow it's gonna happen again, and then getting up at 6 in the morning because I had to go travel there, and it was a good hour from where I lived. It was just torture. I really, really hated it until after like 2 months or so, I cried and begged my mom if I could please stop working there because I started working, stop going to school there. And my mom luckily gave in, and then I could stop going to school there, and that was a massive relief. Then I went to work for my uncle in this transport company, and so it was me as this just 16-year-old kid, and for the rest it was only men, and they were all, I think 30 and above, and there I was teased. And there was this one guy who was about 45 years old, Raymond was his name, and he found out that I was still a virgin. And so now every day there were jokes about me being a virgin, and whenever that joke was being made, my face would get bright red and everyone would laugh, and it'd be the center of attention. And it's kind of fun to tell it now, but it was pure torture then, because it felt to me like I was disrespected and I was looked down upon, and they were, ridiculing me and mocking me, and I felt horrible because I had a horrible self-esteem. And so I would be anxious going into getting into work. I'd be hoping that guy wasn't there, because he was like the main one that was doing it every single day. And then he'd be there, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I'd be super anxious the whole day. And then sometimes I try to get angry. I'm like, because if I'm in an angry mode, I don't feel so much anxiety. But sometimes I would have to serve them coffee, and he'd be mocking me or ridiculing me or putting me down, and I couldn't do anything back. It was very disempowered. It was very, I felt very disempowered. So that was a shitty situation. I held up for that for about 6 months, and then so that affected me big time. Yes. How much did my social anxiety affect me? Massively. Also, I had lots of pain in my back, and I'm like, there are not many jobs that I can do, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I really had a lot of worries about, man, is it ever gonna work out with me? Because, there's not much that I'm interested in and or talented in that I want to do. And I'd done a whole bunch of these tests to see where my interests would lie, and then the suggestions that came out of it, I don't even remember, but that weren't something that piqued my interest. All of the studies that I could do, there was nothing that I was actually interested in. So it wasn't looking good. And then, well, what else did I do? I did a whole bunch of different jobs, and like I said, I resigned myself, or I got fired, and a lot of different jobs. And then eventually I did backpacking for 3 months, which was really helpful, actually. Scary to do, but it helped me a lot. And then when I came back from that, I was planning to not live in the Netherlands anymore. Then I was working for a company. I was working for the TomTom navigation devices, and then I looked for a different job because I was going to study psychology. That was my idea. I wanted to study psychology. Okay, so I was 20, because when you're 21, you can do the 21 plus test in the Netherlands. And even if you don't have the proper pre-education, you can still go to university. gotta love the Netherlands. And so it required a math test, a biology test, and an English test. Well, I did the English test and I succeeded. Biology was just a matter of, reading the information and digesting it. But math, that was difficult. And so for math, I really had to keep studying and do extra courses. So I had like a 3-hour course a week and then about 12 hours of homework. All that was on top of a 40-hour work week and, an addiction to smoking weed every day. So that was quite difficult. And so I wasn't, like, after 6 months, I'm like, I gotta do, I want to change. I'm not gonna do this. What the hell? And then I was looking online for different jobs. And then what I found was, oh, you want to go work in South Africa? It doesn't earn too much money, but you get to live in South Africa. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This must be a joke. This can't be for real. Is this for real? And then I phoned in, and they're like, yeah, this is for real, but we're only looking for people who don't have any problems leaving the Netherlands and are able to go. I'm like, that's me. And I had an interview with them, and within 5 minutes they said, all right, you're hired. I'm like, great. And so then I went to South Africa to work for IBM as a customer care representative. And that was very liberating, because when I arrived in South Africa, nobody knew my bad reputation. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew that I was anxious. Nobody knew that I was insecure. Nobody knew how much of a loser I was with women. Nobody knew all of that. And so I kind of had like a blank slate. Now, I was still anxious, but it wasn't, I was, how do I say that? There wasn't as much suffering along with the anxiety, because the extra pressure and other people knowing and all of that kind of stuff, that was a lot less. And everyone was also very nice because we were dumped with, I think, 100 people from the Netherlands that all didn't know each other, and 50 people or 100 people from Cape Town, one of the big cities in South Africa, that also didn't know each other, and we're all dumped at this help desk. So we're all 21 years old. We're put in these massive houses together with people you don't know, so we were living in these massive villas, and everyone had their own room, and so there was a lot of drinking and a lot of partying, and that really helped with getting to know people. So soon enough, I had a pretty great social life there, and we were partying all the time, and my anxiety would be showing up in specific situations, but I had created quite a good scenario there, and so that was quite helpful. And then in South Africa is where I discovered tapping. So, well, there you go. I was 21. So I'm now 35. So that's 14 years ago. And then, because I had already ordered some programs online, I knew that you could sell products, and I had seen that there were EFT practitioners, and I'm like, wow, I can become a coach. And I can, because by now I'm 21 and I've already done like personal development for 5 years, and like I was obsessed by that. And so I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go in this direction, and I'm gonna set up my website, because I found a way to set up a website. I'm gonna set up a website. I'm gonna write about social anxiety. I'm gonna figure out how to overcome this for myself completely, and then I'm gonna start coaching, and I'll sell products, and I'll be helping a lot of people, and that was my whole goal. And the rest is history. So within that particular path, how did that affect my social anxiety, or how was my social anxiety affected in that? Well, I think that's quite a unique scenario, because I was in the process of overcoming my social anxiety when I already started coaching. But I had made a lot of progress when I started coaching, and so I knew that what I was doing was working. And I had also studied EFT very well. I mean, very well. I had studied it, and I had seen results when I tried it with a bunch of people. So that's how I started. And it was scary because I really believed that I could overcome my social anxiety with it, but I wasn't just there yet. And so for quite a long time, it was really like hoping that eventually I'm gonna get to the other side where I don't have this social anxiety anymore, but I wasn't 100% convinced of it. And also when I started coaching people, I also wasn't 100% convinced that I could completely help them overcome their social anxiety. And in fact, it took me a couple of years before I actually was able to do so. I mean, it could help people, I could reduce it, but I first had to overcome my social anxiety completely before I was able to help my clients overcome it completely as well. So anyway, I think that's enough of a story. So how did it affect my career? Well, in this way. And what I would recommend you to do with your career is make it a priority to resolve it. You know, whatever it takes. Like I spend probably $120,000. I could have bought a house from the money that I spent on resolving my social anxiety. But it's been worth every cent, because the freedom that I now enjoy, I am really grateful for, you know. And it's not just my social anxiety, it's just a happy state of mind. You know, if I'm walking around here in the Netherlands now, and like there are so many people that are not happy, you know, and I'm very happy. And I attribute that to doing a lot of inner work, and it's cost a lot of money, it's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of focus, but it's so well worth it, because your mental and emotional well-being is something that you carry with you for the rest of your life. You know, it affects everything. The people that you choose to surround yourself with, the hobbies that you do, your health, your your relationships, the relationship with your significant other or the one that you choose, your career. So, you know, a lot of people, they don't move on career-wise, even though they are ambitious and they want to move to the next level, but they can't, because they feel like, okay, well, I don't want to have that promotion, because in that promoted role I have to lead people, and I cannot do that. You wouldn't believe the amount of people that I've worked with that had that problem. So yeah, get rid of it so that you can go for the career that you want, and you can live the life that you want. So, hope it's been helpful. This is it for now. And subscribe here for more video like this. I release them every week. I've been doing that for, I think, 2 years now. And I started my first video in 2009. So if you're wondering what I looked like or how I dealt with the social anxiety at the time, have a look at that video and have a little laugh, because I was still dealing with quite a bit of social anxiety there. Maybe some other psychological issues as well. I don't know what the hell was going on with me, but I looked like I'm half stoned on that video. I wasn't, but you know. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.